So we actually do have to show an end product to get paid. What happens is the company will buy Salesforce licenses directly from Salesforce, but then everyone starts with the same version of Salesforce. So whether you sell airplanes or tile flooring, whatever it is, everyone starts with an out-of-the-box version for the most part. So then you either have to have someone in-house that knows how to configure the system for your business, or you hire us. So Salesforce typically brings in a partner like us as a third party, about 85 to 90% of the deals.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Hunter Austin. He's the co-founder and managing partner at Kelley Austin. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kelsey. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, excited to have you. So, Hunter, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, a little bit about myself. Let's. I'll start with kind of career path, how I ended up here into what I do now, which is technology consulting. But it starts way back. I've had kind of the entrepreneurial spirit for a long time. Back when I was 15, 16 in high school, e-commerce websites had just started coming out, and so I was ordering clothes and hats from China. I would drive to the post office because everything had to be shipped there from China, and had to be like, I had to go knock on this special door and hope someone was in there to give me my package because it couldn't just be shipped to the house. And I'd go and get it, and I put it on eBay, and then I created an e-commerce store. And so I was doing that at the age of like 15 or 16. And ever since, I've kind of always had that drive where I wanted to be able to kind of do my own thing and help other companies and help other people build their businesses as well, which is how I've gotten here today. So that's me in kind of history and how I kind of wound up here. But live in Dallas, Fort Worth. I've got a wife and two young kids under the age of 3.
Oh, 2 under 3. Good for you.
Yeah. It's a busy time in the Austin household.
Yeah. So tell me, it's a great journey to kind of get to Kelley Austin. So tell me more about Kelley Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a Salesforce consulting agency. So it's I was at a wedding not too long ago, and someone asked me what I did, and I said consulting, and they're like, "Oh, so you don't really do anything but get paid for it?" Because it's like the stigma in consulting, right? Where you're there and you end up with a PowerPoint, right? We're a little different. So we actually do have to show an end product to get paid. What happens is the company will buy Salesforce licenses directly from Salesforce, but then everyone starts with the same version of Salesforce. So whether you sell airplanes or tile flooring, whatever it is, everyone starts with an out-of-the-box version for the most part. So then you either have to have someone in-house that knows how to configure the system for your business, or you hire us. So Salesforce typically brings in a partner like us as a third party, about 85 to 90% of the deals. They don't really do much in-house at all, except for their really, really big clients. So we would get brought in. We know all of these various industries, how Salesforce can be customized to help those industries specifically. So we come in, we help build it out, train people, so that way they're getting the return on their investment, whether they're using Salesforce to manage sales or customer service or marketing automation, right? There's a large suite of products. So we kind of play in all of those.
Interesting. Talk to me a little bit about the Salesforce services that Kelley Austin, is able to dive into.
So we've got kind of 2 different paths, right?
Yeah.
So we've got regular projects, so full implementations where there's milestones and timelines, and we know exactly, kind of how long it's going to take and exactly what we're going to do, right? So that's more of our formal project where we work through a formal project process. And then we have what we call Salesforce Excellence, but it's our managed services offering. So this could be someone who already has Salesforce, but they don't really have anyone on staff that's an expert, or they do have someone on staff, like an in-house admin, but they're busy just keeping the lights on, right? Or they have maybe a limited skill set. So that's more of like our ongoing support, right? Where you use us kind of as your fractional Salesforce expert, so to speak. So you get a dedicated consultant, and then that consultant has the power of our entire team behind them as well, opposed to just having a single admin in-house where you're limited to whatever their skills and knowledge are if you hire someone internally. So there's some real benefits to there. It's a really popular side of our firm. We're about 50-50 in terms of revenue for the managed services side and the formal project side.
Nice, nice. Are there different trends that you see in, industries or different verticals that Kelley Austin works with?
Yeah, so when you get to a certain size as a Salesforce consulting partner, Salesforce itself encourages you to verticalize, right? So when you're smaller, you kind of deal with every industry. And myself and my co-founder Waylon, we've been doing this for a decade plus. So we've worked in almost every industry at this point. There's very few and far between we haven't. But Salesforce wants you to verticalize. That way, when they're bringing you in to a certain size of client, you can speak to the industry knowledge opposed to just the product knowledge, right? So instead of just saying, oh, Salesforce can do this, Salesforce can do that, you can say, we have clients that are also in software and hardware, and this is what we've done with them, and it works great for them. We should do that with you too. And the vehicle that gets you there happens to be a Salesforce product, right? Like that becomes ancillary at that point. So there's absolutely trends. We work hand in hand with Salesforce to identify some of those trends as well, and all the money that they put into R&D. So one of the verticals that we specialize in is high tech, which is software and hardware, and some technology services as well. So the hot trends right now are things like preventing churn, having your hands tied around subscription billing, product-led growth. As we're going through what we're going through in the tech industry right now, where there's layoffs and that type of thing. There's a lot of efficiency and optimization conversations, right? How do I get more, or at least as much, out of less people? And so the goal is not to have to go to hire more people right now because of this new focus on really focusing on the bottom line instead of just this hyper growth mode.
Yeah, interesting. So kind of talking, you said Waylon, was your other co-founder. Talk to me a little bit about over the years how you've been able to scale successfully and go from, having a bunch of different, industries, it sounds like, to being more verticalized.
So we were really lucky in the kind of the hand that we got dealt by God. So Waylon and I are brothers-in-law, all right? So we've known each other for about 15 years. And most brothers-in-laws get along really well. You see each other occasionally, whatever it may be, and it's fine, right? But it's rare that you meet someone, and I was in high school when I met Waylon. It's rare that you end up in this situation where both of you have complementary skill sets, right? So the two of us worked at two other Salesforce consulting firms before we started Kelley Austin. And it just happens to be that Waylon's extremely strong on the technical side of the Salesforce implementation, right? Understanding business, understanding how Salesforce can be built to handle that business, the whole implementation process. And my skill set is in go-to-market, building relationships from a sales perspective, marketing perspective, those types of things. So when we helped grow those other two firms, we just naturally kind of pushed each other because one person handles one side of the house and is getting deals in the door, and the other one is making sure that those projects are successful. And then they kind of feed each other, right? The more projects you have that are successful, the more people want to work with you. And then the more people that want to work with you, the more experience you get because you're dealing with newer things. So what you see in there's over 2,000 Salesforce partners, all right? And even if you take Salesforce out of it, just implementation partners for whatever software, what you typically see is that it's typically founded by either just technical experts, right, that don't have the go-to-market and the sales skill set, or you see it founded by previous salespeople that worked at those software companies, right? Someone was a salesperson at Salesforce, they've got all these connections, so then they've got to go figure out someone to handle the house to actually do a successful project implementation, right? Whether you're subcontracting that or whatever. We were one of the rare teams that had a complementary skill sets. So now we've just pushed each other, right? I want sales to be successful and I want to keep building relationships, and Waylon wants to keep, doing cool projects and working on new and fun things. So we just kind of naturally pushed ourselves to this level. We weren't expecting to grow quite as fast as we have, but we became the fastest Salesforce partner to ever reach gold status with Salesforce, and out of about 2,000 companies. So that was a big milestone for us. It's certainly not the end all be all. Like, growth isn't the only metric that we focus on, but it was cool nonetheless to see the success that we've had parlay itself.
Yeah. Were there any growing pains or anything that, were realizations kind of in the scaling process for you? Because it sounds like you were able to scale quickly and successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time you start hiring employees that are pure overhead, it is really difficult for a small business because you've got all these margins in your mind, right? And you've seen how things kind of work, and you're kind of comfortable in this percentage to take care of things and to put money back in the business and to pay yourself, et cetera. And then you get to this certain level where you have to start hiring employees that don't contribute to that top line revenue at all, right? All they do is affect the bottom line. And it slashes your margin faster than you ever think about, right? Like, those things are coming, but until you start seeing those salaries really hit the bottom line in your small company, you don't realize how many percentage points you're affecting with each one. But it's the nature of the business, right? Like, those people are vital to our business. We have to have them to be able to continue being successful and continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
But it is until you do it the first time and you realize what it does, it is a hard pill to swallow. There's some road bumps there to just strategize around from a pure cash flow perspective.
Yeah. When did you know that you were on to something with Kelley Austin and you really saw like kind of that pivotal success? Was there a point for you for that?
That's a really good question. So the way that we sell typically is we can go do outbound and use Google ads and LinkedIn ads and all that thing, right? If you've got Salesforce and you need help, or if you want to buy Salesforce and you need help, come to Kelley Austin. But we're competing with a lot of eyeballs at that point, right? Or competing with a lot of people for those eyeballs. So what we typically do is we typically sell through Salesforce. So we build our relationships with their salespeople so that they'll bring us into the deals, right? And we've done this at the other two firms as well, but I had some connections, and again, I've been doing this for a long time. So I had some connections, and then another thing that happened is when we first started Kelley Austin, a guy that I knew from high school ended up just getting a job at Salesforce as a salesperson. So, I was messaging him, hey, new firm, like, bring me into some deals, man. Like, give me a chance here. So he did, and he is huge reason for us, our kind of jumping point. But as soon as so he was on a certain team, okay, not to get too far in the weeds here, but there's sales teams in Salesforce, right? And they have a manager in their team. So we worked with that team, and that all went well. We started working with other people on his team. They'd bring us in. But as soon as someone from a different team that you've never spoken with emails you and is like, hey, I heard Kelley Austin does great work, I want to bring you into my clients. That's when you're kind of like, okay, it's kind of like when you're starting a fire and you can see the fire spread to another log that wasn't lit already, right? It's kind of, that's what happened, right? We get in with another log, and then that one lights it. And soon, next thing you know, you walk into the Dallas office and you say the name Kelley Austin, and everyone knows that name, right? And we've worked with a lot of them in there. So it's kind of that, as soon as we jump that team, it's like, okay, we've got some traction here.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. So, Hunter, is there, kind of pivoting a little bit, is there any misconceptions that you've kind of heard of often in regards to Salesforce and in regards to, consulting? I think you mentioned one before, kind of thinking you get paid to do nothing. Is there any other misconceptions kind of that you've heard over the years?
Yeah. What I hate hearing is when I'll focus on the sales side of things, right? So it doesn't have to be Salesforce in terms of CRM, HubSpot, Zoho, whatever. Insert CRM here. VP of sales or director of sales or CEO, if the company's small enough, they like to use this phrase of, I'm going to get Salesforce and we're going to implement it and my sales team's going to use it. And if it's not in Salesforce, it never happened, right? That's kind of the key phrase they like to use. And it's kind of this like totalitarian, I'm going to build this out and I'm going to make sure that they use it. And that mindset fails literally 10 out of 10 times. And the reason is because the majority of people that are making the making the decision to purchase the CRM are the executives, right? And that's because they want to see analytics, they want to see pipeline, and they want to know if their sales team is sitting there watching Game of Thrones or, making calls and going and knocking on doors. So that's the main reasoning, right? But in order to get salespeople to actually use it, you've got to talk to them and make sure that it's going to help them sell more, right? So that's where we see a major gap, is that they feel like if they just rule with this iron fist of like everything has to be in there, that then it's just going to happen. But what in turn happens is that salespeople just get on at Friday at 3 p.m. and go in and fill in what they can remember so that they don't get yelled at on Monday, right? The flip side of that is bringing the salespeople into the process and understanding, how can I make your life easier, right? What can we do? What can we automate? What can we remove steps from that is going to let you sell more, right? And then you've got to use the system to say, hey, John, hey, Samantha, you see, if you do all these things and you use the system, it leads to more sales, right? And that's what salespeople want, right? Salespeople care about one thing: what's my bank account? That's it. Don't make it more complicated than that. So if you build a system in the mind of them actually wanting to use it because it's going to make them more money, opposed to executives just need their metrics to judge them on it, then that's when we see success and adoption, which is a problem in the CRM industry, is getting adoption, getting people to actually use the system.
And why do you think that is?
That is because salespeople don't like being told what to do. Honestly, right? Like they don't want to do anything. They don't want to spend any. And I'm a salesperson, right? So I can I can speak like this, but they don't want to do anything that's not going to lead them to make more money, and it just takes more time. And they feel like it's Big Brother, right? And they're like, why do I have to go enter all this? It's a pain to do. It can be time consuming. So it's just there's a lot of hurdles there that you're forcing on people who naturally operate in this mode of having to be adaptive, and they're not sit behind a keyboard and type all day, right? Let's go out to lunch and I'm going to convince you to buy my product. So it's just the type of personalities that you're working with on the sales side. Customer service is really easy, right? If you build customer service through Salesforce, and when someone creates a support ticket and needs help, it gets created and then sent into Salesforce. So the support team has to go into Salesforce to work it. There's no adoption issue there, right? Like that's your only tool. But a salesperson theoretically could sell $1 million worth of business without really touching the CRM, unless you have operational processes woven in.
Yeah, interesting. So, Hunter, if people want to learn more about Kelley Austin, kind of the services that you're able to offer and consulting, where would they go to get more information?
Yeah, so our website, kelleyaustin.com. Kelley is Kelley. Lots of information on there. We talk to people all the time where it's not necessarily like, hey, we're ready to sign up for your services, but it may be, hey, we've had Salesforce for 4 years. Things aren't really going well. Can you look at things for an hour and tell us what you would recommend? And the answer is always absolutely, right? Or could be, hey, we have this other system. We're thinking about moving to Salesforce. We don't know if we're big enough. We don't know if it's actually going to solve our challenges. Can you talk to us? And people like to talk to us before they go talk to Salesforce, because that's kind of like walking in the lion's den, right? Like it's kind of like doing your car research before you go to the dealership, right? That you're going to choose. So we're kind of that third party that you can talk to. And yes, we have a dog in the fight, because if you buy Salesforce, then you're going to use our services. But we are paid to be consultative, right? Like that's what we do. That's in our nature, is to be consultative. And we turned down millions and millions of dollars of work last year because we either weren't a good fit or it wasn't the right solution for the client. Because the worst thing we can do is take a bad project that isn't going to be successful, because one tick mark on your reputation in this industry can hurt. So we've got to protect that reputation. So we work really hard on earning clients' trust. And sometimes that means we're going to do business with them. And sometimes we earn that trust by saying, hey, this probably just isn't the right fit for you.
Yeah. It sounds like you really do, you and Waylon have a great balance, because it sounds like you really get the sales, you get the importance of interpersonal relationships, and really that trust that, somebody else is trusting you with their Salesforce.
Correct. Yeah. I might come at it from a sales perspective and be like, I want this deal. And Waylon will be like, that's great. But from a technical perspective, it's impossible to deliver. So we're not going to sell it. Right.
Yeah.
And I might not know that. So there is that balance there is critical.
Yeah.
It's checks and balances and ensures that in the end, the client's being told the correct thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Hunter, this has been great. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, is there anything that you want to make sure our listeners know, either about Salesforce, about consulting, about, IT, anything like that, that you want to leave our listeners with?
I think it's important. I always think it's important that small and medium-sized business understand that there is not this like entry point for you to buy something like Salesforce, right? Where you have to hit certain amount of employees or certain revenue numbers or anything like that. Waylon and I obviously started our business with us too, on the Salesforce platform. We have done consulting for companies 10 employees and less, plenty of them, right? There's different levels of Salesforce. There's also this ability to scale either up as you grow, but you can also take Salesforce and scale it down from a simplicity standpoint, right? So I always say Salesforce is scalable. That can mean up and that can also mean down. But the earlier you get something in place like Salesforce, the less pain you're going to have when you are ready to hit that scale and start using more and more of the system, right? It's easier to grow, much easier to grow into it than to migrate later. So I always encourage people, and if you can't afford implementation with a firm, there are tons of independent contractors out there that are previous consultants that can help you get it set up and are much cheaper, right? If you just need the basics, go find them on Upwork.com or various other places, but don't wait to get a good solid CRM in place for your business, no matter the size. Like the time is now. It'll help you grow later. And I actually just mentioned this earlier this week when I was talking to someone else. If you can't afford like $75 a user a month for your salesperson to use Salesforce, then you probably can't afford that salesperson, right? You probably weren't at the point yet where you should be hiring salespeople if you can't afford $75 user a month for them to be able to do their job and use a platform like Salesforce. So that's kind of my parting thought. I always like to share.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting insight too. And I think you obviously have the experience to talk to that. When helping companies, with their system, with all of that. I think it's been a great conversation, Hunter. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on Business Ninjas today.
Thanks, Kelsey. I appreciate it.